Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, host and head bookologist here at the Get Literate podcast. I'm a book loving, notebook hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. On this podcast, we explore the power of books and reading and notebooks and writing to make life better and to feel better too. You'll find episodes exploring the reading and writing life and how it can make our actual lives better. You'll get book recommendations and notebook invitations around particular themes, and you'll meet authors and special guests who'll help us take inspired action in our own daily practices. So, grab a notebook and your TBR list, and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, your host, here with another episode on how reading and writing can make life better. And I'm here with an introduction to today's special guest. You know that every so often on the podcast, I chat with authors, journalers, booksellers, and anyone else who understands the power that reading and writing can have to change our lives for the better. Today's guest is no exception. Jeannine Atkins is the author of several books for young readers about courageous women, and she teaches writing for children and young adults too. She's here today to talk about her newest release, Knocking on Windows, a memoir in verse about healing from trauma and finding her voice as a writer. Janine, welcome to the Get Literate podcast. I am so glad you're here today.
Thank you. I think this is a beautiful mission.
Thank you. That is such a nice way to put it. Books, reading, healing, making life better. It really
Yeah.
is a mission that I believe we both share, that we're going to get to know a little bit about you today. So why don't we start there? Give us a little bit about you and your backstory through reading and writing.
Well, it's funny because I think I always felt in some sense writing and reading as healing, growing up with being a shy girl and going to library, finding some kind of friends on the shelves. I loved biographies of girls from the past. I loved reading about Louisa May Alcott and um, Laura Ingalls Wilder and Virginia Dare and Harriet Tubman, and tended to go for the girls.
Yeah.
And then, that sort of led me toward being an English major, where reading and writing was not healing. It was a
Work.
I'm not sure what it was, but it was a taboo for anything really to talk about yourselves, or we were taught to kind of keep the books separate from our own lives, to keep them separate from the authors, to take it as almost a science or something. And there was some goodness in that. And I did learn the power of words off the page. Um, but when I became a writer, I think I was also becoming a mother at that time. And it was going back to my childhood again, and, seeing the delight in language, the expansion in reading, the whole selves that come out of the process. And I first did write about women from the past, which was my love as a child, and did that for many years, for decades, and loved doing that. And finally, around the time I turned 70, I thought, well, maybe it's time to write about my life. And a story I always knew was there and always carried with me, but never knew if I'd actually write about.
So lesson is that it's never too late.
Yeah.
Never
Unless
too
it
late.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think.
So I'd love to move into talking about your book because it is such a beautiful book. It is such an emotional, powerful, immersive, all the wonderful words I can think of. Memoir on the pages, um, and it is a story of healing through writing. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the book and kind of the format of it, because essentially you've got these beautiful verse poems. You have these, letters to literary giants that were part of your healing. And I'd love for you to share with listeners, um, how that process and the format really was a catalyst for you.
Yeah, I think, part of it, it did took me a long time, did take me a long time to find the right form. I did write about my experiences in my 20s as I was healing from that, and worked with a writing therapist to do that in a safe place. So that was, good. I did try to publish it, but it was rejected then, and I put it away, and then did go on to writing about Marie Curie and
Mhm.
Louisa Alcott, of course. So, um, but I would, attempt again from time to time writing poems, and that felt like a better form for me. It was partly, as the years passed, it was writing about healing. It was also writing about memory, and memory comes to me in fragments that are more like poems than prose. There's not a whole story coming along. Um, and I think that also I tried to reflect in the book too, that that's how healing happened. I didn't structure it in a chronological way, but I began back from Florida in a bedroom I thought I had left, my freshman year of college, and being told, put it behind you, by my family, by the culture, by everything. And of course, I couldn't. And so I kind of used the fragments of poems to show, trying to be the good girl, doing what was told, and not wanting to remember too, wishing I could move ahead. And then the force of memory coming in, and how that is for so many a struggle.
Yeah. So when I think of writing to heal, at least in how I've done it so far in my own life, it's a lot of expressive writing on the page. It's a lot of emotions on the page, things I probably wouldn't express or say in real life, but that the page
Hmm.
feels safe. And I usually throw it away afterwards so that I can unload and kind of
Hmm.
move on. Um, and that is a very private place. And
Hmm.
now your healing through writing is in a public place. And so I'm wondering how that feels and how you navigate it as you take this really personal, really private experience, but share it with people so that we can benefit as well. And I'm wondering how that feels now as you've just released it to the
Yeah, it's, it's less, terrifying than I might have thought, partly because I've been met with, so many good people, and grateful people, to have a story. And again, I think, age does come in, because I too wrote years and years those things I threw away that were, messy and didn't have much sense of design in them. And I think I came to a point where I knew my craft was good enough. I could handle it and put it to something that was less me and more of a book. I mean, it's still me in it, very much so, but it also feels like a book to me. It feels like, oh, this is a poem, this is a line, so there is that distancing as well, and so it took many years to, get to that place.
Well, it certainly is a poem. It certainly is a book. And it's one
Mhm.
that like I hugged more than once as I was walking alongside of you and your journey. And even though, I haven't experienced what you have experienced here, I think there's something about just someone going through something difficult and being brave enough to share it just makes you feel less alone with whatever it is that you are going through. And so, well, I could never see myself putting some of my words on paper out into the world. I'm just so grateful you did because I can't even imagine how many people, how many lives you are just going to help feel seen and
Well,
just stand
that's
next to, even though you're not standing there, your book is. It's just, oh, it's just so powerful.
well,
And
thank you. I
yeah,
think, yeah, part of that hurt was, and why it's so hard for people is because we're told to be silenced, about it. And so I really wanted to push about against that. And, you know, that was a grace for me. Yeah.
yeah. So you teach writing. You teach writing for children and young adults. I'm curious if you have advice for someone. If someone is listening to you and I and thinking, maybe I just have to write some stuff down. Maybe I really could use writing as a tool. I don't know if I'm sure you teach the craft of writing. I don't know if you teach this aspect of writing, but would you have any advice for someone who's listening and thinking maybe this could help me?
Yeah, I think you do have to, just go ahead, but make sure you have a safe place in, which to write, and safe people around you. Especially if you come to the point where you want to share it, don't go into any of the sort of showing rashly, show it to somebody you really trust. And that, that was important to me, even, reading drafts of this book at the end. There, were I'd worked with writer friends for decades, in some ways. So, these were people I totally trusted. Um, and again, there wasn't, I write now very much alone a lot of the time. I don't need as much as I used to in terms of direction and craft, but to have a place where people said things that you're saying, this is good, people need this book. That helped me forge ahead. So it's difficult, and I do always say, especially in the classroom, maybe the classroom, isn't the place, but keep going. And if you want to show it to me privately or others, um, be very careful with yourself and what you expose, I think, Um, but very, very often, if you use your good judgment, you can find the right people, and also just simply the right place, the right sofa to work in, the right library window to look out of, what makes you feel safe that way. For me, place is important in my poems and in my life, the nature, that kind of thing.
Mhm. Would you say that part of that safety for you was also in reading some of the literary works of others?
Yes, that was certainly a companion. And I think, when you were saying about, the sort of venting most of us have to do before we write a sentence that makes sense, to find Sylvia Plath's anger, but like honed like a diamond, like, she, she
Yeah.
was screaming sometimes, she was tearing things up, she was being destructive, but on the page, she managed to, to find a way to channel that. And, Emily Dickinson, I'm sure, wasn't just puttering in her garden and the gingerbread, totally
Right.
calm and sweet all the time too, but she found a way to condense it and to make something happen on the page.
Yeah, I loved there were two lines that jumped out at me that really, for me, cemented the role that reading and writing can play in this kind of work. And you mentioned it a little bit earlier when you were introducing yourself, but one line you said, "I miss stumbling into moments when a girl in a book seemed to become me."
Mhm.
That's like that gift of reading when you can feel seen and you can see and you just feel different or changed or transformed.
Right.
And then when you were talking about Sylvia Plath, can her poems become rooms to write in? And for me, that was, uh, for me, it always has been. I think that safe place that you talked about for
Hmm.
me isn't always a location, but
Hmm.
it's the space to feel comfortable to write, and
Hmm.
sometimes, most of the time, a book, a poem, an article, a quote, something will speak to me or just get through to me, and that usually is my impetus or my spark to write. So I just love that. Can her poems become rooms to write in? And then you so beautifully linked later on, hopefully your poems then feel like rooms that others
Mm.
can write in as well. And that's when I got a little bit teary, Janine.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I always wrote, and I wrote this, beginning in the pandemic too. So that's those piles of books were truly physically, company during that time. And I kind of, I do love physical books, and whether you open that much or not, they do feel like companions.
They do. You said that in your introduction too. They're friends.
Yeah, yeah,
Friends that are always there. The books and notebooks never judge. They don't evaluate. They just wait patiently for you. It's a good form of therapy. It's just a good solace. I find solace in it, I think.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
really feels good.
yeah, yeah.
Now, your book, at least at the time of recording, was just released a short while ago, and so I'd love to ask you what your hope is as it goes out into the world. Your hope for the book, your hope for readers, your hope for all of it as you think about your words being read and hugged like I did.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, it is funny because, people in the reviews, and oh, she's very brave. And I address it in the book too. I never really feel brave, it's a funny word to me, but okay, if you want to call me that, that's fine. But I think um, I guess I'm hoping for more readers to feel that, bravery doesn't have to come in the ways we were taught, with, a kind of military aspect to it often, or, but just um, being, courageous enough to, speak your own truths to people. And, um, it's a quiet courage, I guess, doing that, but it's so important. And it is lovely to feel my community expanding of people. I went to one reading, and people came up afterwards, and it was sort of like, me too. They didn't tell their whole stories, but some even just a look in the eye, like you're speaking to me. And like you said, it doesn't, the experiences are variable, but everyone feeling some sense of somebody told them to be quiet about something that is rumbling in their soul, and asking to be heard. And so that's the hope, I think.
Yeah. Do you know the picture book, The Circles All Around Us by Brad
No.
Montague? It's a beautiful book. Brad Montague is the creator of the wonderful Kid President videos that a lot of us love. And this is a beautiful picture book about the circles we draw for ourselves. And
Mm,
that, when we're born, our circle is very tight and only includes us
mm,
and our immediate caregivers. And as we grow, our experiences, our choices, our actions, it broadens our circle, and our circles get bigger and bigger and bigger to let in new people and new learning and new circumstances. And I feel like every book that we read and every time we write down a story and put it out there with others gives us that potential to biggen, that's not a word, biggen our circle.
mm.
Broaden our circle, make
There
our
you go.
circles bigger. And I feel like you just said that so beautifully, right? It's the opportunity to make those new connections, to just, I guess, broaden the circles a bit and choose something bigger, right? When you
Yeah,
connect with
yeah.
people in that way. And that's such a beautiful gift that you give to people in this with this book.
Thank you.
Well, you're so welcome. Where is the best place for listeners to find you if they want to connect with you, if they want to find out about, author visits or events that you're doing? Because I have a feeling that
Yeah, I'm,
we want to.
a little lax these days on social media, but I do have a website that needs updating, JeannineAtkins.com, my name, JeannineAtkins.com. And, I'm on Facebook and Blue Sky again under my name. Um,
Okay. I'll find them. I'll find them and
you'll
I'll
find.
put all those links in.
Okay.
And I, of course, will put a link to your beautiful book in the show notes. And I'm just so grateful that I'm part of your launch of putting it out in the world. It really is a gift.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I'm so honored that you came to chat with us about it.
I'm grateful and honored too. Thank you.
Welcome. Listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of the Get Literate podcast, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all of the books, resources, and ideas mentioned on the episode in the show notes and at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to join my Substack community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life, like bonus podcast episodes, bibliotherapy book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking inspiration, live events, giveaways, and much more. It's only $5 a month, and you'll get instant access to all of the previous content too. You can learn more at getliterate.co. And one more thing, if you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a bookish friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish and notebookish communities too. Thanks for listening.